Okay. Thursday night. Thursday's in the house. I said Thursday's in the house. Go live on Rockfin, and we're set to go.
Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati.
All right. Welcome, guys. Happy Thursday. Feels great to be back. Welcome to Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you are new, I want to let you know that Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And you can catch me here Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Fridays. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, and Twitter. And I want to give a quick hellos to people in the chat. Greetings, guys. All right. Shout out to AJF. Why is AOC accepting to be on a male-based GQ magazine cover after complaining how some in politics and media sexualize her? She's a politician, not a celebrity or model. Tease or sellout? Good questions, AJF, and welcome. What's going on? Fred says, hi, Sabby. If Dr. West is your guest, I hope you ask him what he thinks of your 80-20 plan. 80% of our energy and time spent on movements outside of electoral politics. If so, what and how? Good question. All I can say is you guys have to wait till the end of the show to see who the surprise guest is. So, yeah, we have to wait for that. Shout out to Saul says, West, please let it be West. Greetings, Roman says, LOL. Shout out to Notori says, rock on, fire and love. Greetings, Miguel says, peace. Miguel also says, I'm guessing Glenn Greenwald. Interesting picks here, guys. Shout out to Hannah G. Sabby, is it Glenn? You guys will have to wait and see. What's going on, Norman? 48, what the hell I'm doing here? I'm a weirdo. I don't know what that means, but welcome. Shout out to Monarch says, I'll say Cornell West. Interesting. Greetings, Kim. Hi, Sabby. Hello, crew. What's going on? Brandy says, hello, everyone. Shout out to Gamer says, hello again, y'all. What's going on? Whoopsie, I skipped ahead. What's going on? Casey says solidarity and fire. Shout out to Delthea Simmons, who's a Sabby member. Hello, everybody. Greetings from the Tar Heel State. Sorry I missed last night. It was my birthday and some friends took me out to dinner. I hope you had fun and happy belated birthday, Delthea. Everyone give Delthea a big happy B-Day in the chat. Whoop, whoop. Shout out to Lawrence, who's a Sabby member, says, Doobie Doobie Door 2024. Greetings, Eric, who's also a Sabby member, says, time to do the thing. What's going on, Stephen? God bless HM Queen Elizabeth II, RIP. Thank you for your service. 1926 to 2022. Yeah, I'm going to be nice. I'm going to be nice. Oh, man. Shout out Miguel H says doobie doobie doo. Greetings, Anthony, who's a Sabby member, says hi, everybody. What's going on? Terry says hello, Sabby and fam. Greetings, Collins in the chat. We do not praise the queen here. We do not. Colin knows what's up. Not up in here. Shout out to Nixie, who is a Sabby member, says, hey, everyone. Greetings, Arif, says Reagan Crack. Okay. Shout out to Alex, says, hi, Sabby. Hey, Alex. Alex was at Camp Dada with me, you guys. Shout out to Sean, says, yo, all. Greetings, RIP Shireen Abu Akle. Hello, everyone. What's going on? Joe says, I love Thursdays with Sabby. Thank you. That's really sweet. Shout out to Gore, son of none. Evening, lovely folks. So glad to be here with you all. What's going on? Jay says, happy Thursday, Sabby. Shout out to Elijah. Had to roll up some Lizzie today. What's going on, Sun Moon? Hey, Sabby, ready to talk about that cringe AOC GQ cover? Oh, we're going to get there. We are going to get there, Sun Moon. What's going on, Domino 78 or Domino 78? Hello, y'all. Round 2. My vote was Whitney Webb. Interesting. Guys, if you haven't had a chance to do so, take that poll. It's pinned at the top of the chat. I'll reveal the results at the end of the show. What's going on, T? Torstrick, Sabby, Sabs. Shout out to Monique in London. Hello. Am I the only one listening to the Smiths today? What's going on, Chicago? Grr 81. Lizzie's in a box. Shout out to Ashura, says Glenn Greenwald. Interesting. I think it's funny no one else has said the other one yet. Shout out to Astro. I hope it's Wes, but Gut says Susan S. Oh, I spoke too soon. We shall see, guys. We shall see. Okay. Let's go ahead and lots of comments in the chat, but I want to go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Let's get them up on the screen. All righty. Let's give a huge shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Just want to say what is up. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories: members, Sabby, Sabsters, Sabinators, and the ultimate. All of their names are listed here. You can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen on the ticker there. And I want to give a special shout out here to a new Sabby patron. Let's give it up for Adrian, or should I say Adrian? Did I say it right? Adrian. I tried my Rocky impression, who is a newbie, a Sabby newbie. Thank you guys so much for your support. I really do appreciate it. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with the thumbnail here so we can get into the topics tonight. So here we go. Interesting topics tonight. Tonight, we are going to discuss Chris Hedges' democracy. Very, very interesting conversation there. And I got to tell you guys again, if you're not following Chris Hedges on Substack, please do so. I really enjoy his articles probably the most. I don't know, he just has such a way of putting his thoughts into writing. He's really good with this. We're also going to discuss AOC is doubtful about running for president. This ties in with that GQ interview that she had. So we're going to get into that discussion. And I'm also going to discuss Baltimore water alert. So let's go ahead and get started. The first story I'm going to discuss is the Baltimore water crisis. So I do want to play something for you really quick because, look, I'm not psychic, but apparently I made a prediction last week. It was brought to my attention earlier today, and it seems that has come true. Last week, we were talking about the water shortage in Mississippi. Apparently, I said something that somebody caught on to and they remembered, and they brought it to my attention. Again, this was last week. Water shortage, Mississippi. Listen to this. And it's not just Jackson, Mississippi. It's not just Flint, Michigan. It can also be a Baltimore, Maryland. Okay. Yeah. Didn't know that was going to happen. Honestly, did not. So for those of you who have not heard about this story, Baltimore, Maryland, or certain parts of Baltimore actually are dealing with the water contamination issue. This really is not surprising to me. As I told you last week, it could be a Baltimore, Maryland, because for those who don't know, I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. Most of my family members still live there, even though I live in Boston. And I did reach out to them, or one of them earlier today, just to check in with them and see how the situation is for them in their neighborhood. And I was told that they have not received any help, not in their neighborhood. So I want you to keep that in mind when you see these videos on mainstream media and they show people delivering bottled water to people in Baltimore. I want you to remember what I just told you. I talked to a family member today and they have not received any. Not yet. But how did this all begin? Let's go ahead and get into it. Now, apparently, on Saturday, that was when the city realized that the water tested positive for E. coli bacteria. Here's the other problem. Apparently, they did not notify residents until Monday. Let's go ahead and get into it. Just going to scroll down here. So it says Baltimore residents urged to boil water after E. coli bacteria found in samples. This is not good. But like I told you, not surprising. I'm going to make this a little bit larger, just so people can see in the back. Make this go away. Okay. Baltimore officials are encouraging residents to boil water used for drinking or cooking after E. coli bacteria was detected in some samples of water supply in parts of West Baltimore. I know exactly where that is. That is actually where my grandma's neighborhood was. So I know exactly what area of Baltimore they're talking about. The City Department of Public Works issued a series of tweets Monday informing residents that the bacteria had been found in portions of the city's 9th Council District, which includes Sandtown, Winchester, and Harlem Park neighborhoods. As an extra precaution, DPW will be sampling and surveying the communities in the area of the facilities where the original sampling was performed. Outside the city, residents in parts of Baltimore County and Howard County were also urged to boil water. Let's go on. DPW officials said Wednesday that they were still investigating the source of the contamination, but they had ruled out that it stemmed from wastewater treatment or water treatment plants. Officials said that between Monday evening and Tuesday, water samples were taken at 25 locations and that only one, a police station on Mount Street, came back positive for E. coli. Officials said they are also investigating 2 cases of gastrointestinal illness within the boil water advisory zone, but it has not been confirmed that the cases were caused by E. coli. So gastrointestinal illness is not fun. That can include anything from having stomach ache, obviously having to vomit, or having some problems in the bathroom. I'm going to try to be as discreet as possible here, but use your imagination. But that's not fun. Sometimes with situations like that, yeah, you can take medicine, but sometimes you have to kind of let it just run its course. Not a good situation to be in. Officials say, over 100,000 people are affected. CBS News Baltimore investigative reporter Mike Helgren reports state environmental officials are searching for the source of the contamination. The bacteria is often spread during contact with feces. And everybody heard that, right? That's how it's often spread. So just keep that in mind. Crews from the Public Works Department have been distributing water in the area with a limit of 3 gallons per household. And these are some of the pictures that you'll see online, like this one here, where they're handing out gallons of water and the cars just drive up and grab the water. But like I told you, I spoke with a relative today and they have not seen any distributed in their neighborhood. So this time around, it's a little bit different. I talked about Jackson, Mississippi. I've talked about Flint, Michigan, but this time is different because it's personal, because I have family there. That's where I'm from. So now it's like it goes from people that I didn't know being affected to people that are family members being affected. Let's go back in. E. coli contamination can cause intestinal distress with symptoms that include, I was trying to be discreet, but gosh, include stomach cramps, diarrhea, and vomiting. Illness caused by the bacteria usually is mild and clears up on its own, but in rare cases, a potentially life-threatening complication can result about a week following the initial infection. And that comes from the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Let's go ahead and pop out here. So here's what I want people to think about. Let's say you're one of the people that gets sick. You have a job. Now you got to call out of work. Because let's be real, it's kind of difficult to go to work if you're running back and forth to the bathroom. And depending on the company you work for, you may not get sick pay. So for some people, if you're in that situation, you're not going to get paid. Again, this goes right back to the healthcare issue, because if we had guaranteed sick leave for everybody in this country, which we don't, if we had universal healthcare, then you wouldn't be stressed about that. But could you imagine being in a position where financially you are kind of holding on to the little bit of money that you have, just trying to get by? Maybe you're one of those people where you get paid and most of your money goes to your bills, like rent, right? If you're in that situation, you're already stressed out financially. Now you got to deal with this. This is something that the city did, not you. It's their fault. Then you got to worry about missing work because you're going to miss pay. This is why I tell people being poor is stressful. Being poor is not fun. It's stressful, and it can affect your mental health as well as your physical health. This is the thing. And God forbid you have one of those bosses where they don't really like for you to call out. Raise your hand if you're in the chat and you ever worked for someone who was like that. They don't want to care. They don't care about what you have. They don't want to hear that you're sick. They just want you to be there and get the work done. I've had one of those bosses before. That's a stressful situation to be in. Now, here's the problem. The water issue in Baltimore is not new. Yes, this issue in particular, in reference to E. coli contamination, that's new right now. But there have been issues with the water in Baltimore for years. I'm going to show you a video. Get here, and I'll go back to the census in a second. I want to show you a video that, honestly, I had never seen this video until I was doing research for the story. And I think everybody should see this video. Now, this video is called Baltimore, Maryland Water Quality Assessment: What You Need to Know. This video is not new. Listen to this.
Baltimore recently released its annual water quality report, and our water nerds dug through it so you don't have to. Make sure to comment below to suggest which city our water nerd should tackle next. Let's start with lead. Lead enters tap water through old service pipes and lead-containing plumbing. 10% of the sites that were tested for lead had concentrations of over 5 parts per billion. Additionally, 2 samples exceeded the federal action level of 15 parts per billion. EPA, CDC, and the American Academy of Pediatrics all recognize that there is no safe level of lead for children. Additionally, these measurements may not be a true indication of your tap water if your home has lead plumbing or lead fixtures. Lead exposure can cause developmental issues.
Did you hear what he just said? So he just said that they found that the lead levels in the water in Baltimore was not safe for children. Again, not a new video. Let's go back in as he goes into detail about what can happen if you have exposure to lead.
Lowered IQ, and damages to the kidneys and brain. Next is disinfection byproducts, or DBPs. Although in compliance with loose EPA standards, the DBP concentrations detected in Baltimore are extremely high. Concentrations were detected as high as 107 parts per billion and averaged 69 parts per billion for trihalomethanes. Haloacetic acid concentrations were as high as 60 parts per billion and averaged 49 parts per billion.
I'm going to turn on the captions so you can see what he's saying because some of the vocabulary. Okay.
Lowered IQ, and damages to the kidneys and brain. Next is disinfection byproducts, or DBPs. Although in compliance with loose EPA standards, the DBP concentrations detected in Baltimore are extremely high.
Okay, this is a problem here. Because if you notice, he said low EPA standards. So here's the thing. I guess if you only have to meet technically a certain threshold, right? So the water in Baltimore, it meets EPA regulations loosely, but it meets it just enough for it to pass, even though it's at the lower level. So just because you see something and it says regulated by EPA standards or meets EPA standards, it can meet the standards, but how high does it meet it? So he just said it was really low. Listen to this.
Concentrations were detected as high as 107 parts per billion and averaged 69 parts per billion for trihalomethanes. Haloacetic acid concentrations were as high as 60 parts per billion and averaged 49 parts per billion. Disinfection byproducts are a category of emerging contaminants, which means they've been detected in drinking water, but the risk to human health is unknown. Regulatory agencies have very little knowledge about the adverse health effects of DBPs and their toxicity. EPA has stated that they have been linked to increased risk of bladder cancer as well as kidney, liver, and central nervous system problems. Our water nerds are on the lookout for other cities to cover. If you would like us to see what's going on in your town, please let us know and comment below.
Do that. I'll give you the link to this in just a second. But again, look at the risk here that you can have from these levels. Because I want to point something out.
Per billion and averaged 49 parts per billion. Disinfection byproducts are a category of emerging contaminants, which means they've been detected in drinking water, but the risk to human health is unknown. Regulatory agencies have very little knowledge about the adverse health effects of DBPs and their toxicity. EPA has stated that they have been linked to increased risk of bladder cancer as well as kidney, liver, and central nervous system problems.
Those are health issues. When we talk about these environmental issues, and I told you this before, who do they usually impact? People who are in low income or poor neighborhoods, people in Black neighborhoods, people in brown neighborhoods. This is an example of environmental racism. Do you see how this works? All of these effects here, kidney, liver, central nervous system problems. And before that, he said bladder cancer. And people wonder why cancer rates are going up. People wonder why people are having more kidney issues, problems with the central nervous system. Sometimes could these things be related to your diet? Yes, but I want to, put that talking point to the side for a second, because that's not always the answer and that's not always the cause. Sometimes the cause is because of the environment that you are living in. And this is a perfect example. If you are drinking the water because you can't afford to buy bottled water is expensive. So if you are on a fixed or a tight income, 9 times out of 10, you are drinking the tap water. It's free. And not realizing if you are in Baltimore, could be giving yourself a greater risk of bladder cancer, kidney disease, liver, central nervous system problems. And we wonder why these rates continue to increase with people in these neighborhoods. And a lot of times we need to link it back to the environment, link it back to the water, not necessarily your diet. Now, here's the problem. When it comes to diet, if you can afford, and I say afford because eating healthy is expensive. If you can afford to eat healthy, then you're going to do that. You can do that. But that's something you may have some control over. You don't have control over what's in the water. You don't have control over that. So what are you supposed to do?
Our water nerds are on the lookout for other cities to cover. If you would like us to see what's going on in your town, please let us know and comment below. Also, if you have any questions about this report or anything else water related, drop us a line at hello@hydraviv.com or visit hydraviv.com and use our live chat.
This video was posted. I want to show you here. Let me just scoot to the back because I want to show you the date. This video was posted July 23rd, 2018. Guys, that was 4 years ago. So there was the point that I'm trying to make to you. There was already a problem with the water. Why wasn't that covered by mainstream media? Who knows what other communities in this country are dealing with the same issue and they just don't know it, right? Now, I'm going to get back to Baltimore in just a second because Eric just told me, and Eric, if you give me that link. Oh, you're putting it up there? Okay. Eric just informed me that we have another water issue right here in Massachusetts. Just showed me this. Boom. Boil water order issued in Wilmington, Massachusetts after samples test positive for E. coli. That's right here in Massachusetts. See? I think we might have someone from Wilmington in the chat. Residents in Wilmington are being asked to boil their water for at least a minute after the town's Department of Public Works learned a sample from the water system tested positive for E. coli bacteria. Wilmington DPW announced the discovery on Thursday, shortly after collecting the test results and notifying the State Department of Environmental Protection. Residents are also being asked to throw out all iced beverages, uncooked foods, and formula made with tap water collected September 7th, 2022. So again, if you're on a fixed income, now you got to throw out any food, anything basically that touched the tap water, you got to throw it all out. Is the city, what's that, Wild Arts? I boiled mine for 10 minutes today. There you go. So is the town of Wilmington going to help the residents who have to throw out all their food restock their refrigerator? Are they going to give them food vouchers or something like that? Groceries are expensive here in Massachusetts right now. This is important. So here we go again. This is why I was telling you guys, it's not just Jackson, Mississippi. It's not just Flint, Michigan. I'll go back in here. It also says, once samples come back favorable and DEP approves listing the order, a new message will be released to the public. So according to the town's website, Wilmington's water distribution system includes 4 groundwater wells and 2 water treatment plants encompassing some 138 miles worth of water mains and over 1,200 fire hydrants. Who's next? I don't know what to tell you, except we kind of saw this. It's going to be someone else soon, right? Now, Baltimore, Maryland has some similarities to Jackson, Mississippi. Again, this is where I'm from. I know this particularly well. If you don't know much about Baltimore in reference to the census, you're about to find out now. So, this is from census.gov. We're looking at Baltimore, Maryland here, and I want to show you some comparisons that we made in reference to Jackson, Mississippi. We're going to start with race and Hispanic origin because you're going to see the similarities. White alone, the percentage of white alone in Baltimore is 29.7%. I'd say that's spot on. Black or African American alone, the percentage is 62.3%. Then we go down, American Indian or Alaska Native, 0.3%. Asian alone, 2.5%. Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander, 0%. Two or more races, 3.2%. Hispanic or Latino is 5.4%. And white alone, not Hispanic or Latino, 27.3%. So similar to Jackson, Mississippi, the majority of the residents in Baltimore are Black. You see the comparison here? You see the point I'm trying to make? The majority are Black. Let's look at income. Let's go down to that. Going to scooch down here. Income and poverty. More similarities. The median household income, now this is 2016 to 2020, is $52,164. Now, depending on where you live, that may seem like a lot of money, but Maryland is expensive. Believe it or not, Maryland's one of those states that's further south that's still expensive, just like Virginia. I always tell people anything near DC is expensive. Now, per capita income in the past 12 months, 32,699. Persons in poverty, 20%. So if you're looking at this income, $52,000 is the median income. I would say a lot of the people who are living in Baltimore are working class. Now, let's go back up here. And there's one more I want to touch on, and that's education. Okay. High school graduate or higher, percent of persons aged 25 and up, 2016 to 2020, 85.5%. Bachelor's degree or higher, 32.9%. So again, similar to Jackson, Mississippi, the majority of the residents do not have a college degree. The majority of the residents have a high school diploma. So 9 times out of 10, they're working class. These are the things I really want people to pay attention to. When I tell you this would not happen in Beverly Hills, when I tell you that this wouldn't happen in Potomac Mills, believe me, it wouldn't. And one of the things that I've learned over time, I've learned something in my life. Something I learned is that it seems like when wealthy people complain, things get resolved very quickly. If people in a wealthy neighborhood have a noise complaint, nipped in the bud pretty quickly. They complain about construction in the area, gets resolved pretty quickly. And if they were to have this issue, which they would likely not, If they were, I bet you it would be resolved pretty quickly. That doesn't happen for people who are poor and people who are working class. And I can point to Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans as a perfect example, because most of the people who were stuck and had no way out, sitting on the top of the roof of their house, waiting for the US government to intervene and come help them, those people were stuck for weeks before they even came down there and tried to help. You had celebrities helping people in New Orleans before the president came in. That's why Kanye West made that speech and he said that George Bush doesn't care about black people. That's just an example. Now, I want to show you one more thing that I think is important to note as well on the census. Health insurance. Here we go. Health. With a disability under age 65, the percentage is 11.8%. Persons without health insurance under age 65, 6.8%. So that's still important. And I'm looking at the number, the percentage of people who are disabled. Who's helping them? Who's going to help them get bottled water? If they can't leave the house, is somebody there to help? These are things we need to think about. But I'll say it again. What's happening in Baltimore is not by accident. These things happen because it's been happening for years, where they don't care what happens to those communities. It's not just the drinking water. It's the hospitals in the neighborhood. There was a hospital in Baltimore called Bon Secure, and the nickname for it was Bon Secure, because the running joke was, if you went to Bon Secure, you did not come back out. Not kidding. So all of it is connected. And sometimes I wonder, and I have to ask myself, sometimes I wonder if they just don't want us to be helped, right? Sometimes I wonder if the elites are sitting back and they're just folding their arms and nodding their heads, and they want us to die off. They want us to get sick and not get help. Sometimes I wonder they just want all of us to go, all the poor people and working class people to go, so that they can just have everything the way that they want it. And I've seen that same sentiment with people living in the tent communities, where some of the wealthy people just look down on them, not understanding how they got in that situation, just assuming that all of them are on drugs, just assuming that all of them made bad decisions. Not necessarily true. There are people living in tent communities that have jobs. But sometimes I wonder, maybe they just want to get rid of us. Maybe that's why they allow gentrification to continue. I don't know. I'm going to go to some of the comments and then we'll get to the next story. Thank you for the super chat. R.I.P. Shireen. Sabby is our queen. Oh, that is really sweet. Thank you so much, Shireen. JB Fonts in the house says, take the poll. Yes, take the poll, guys. Monarch says, why didn't Obama just drink the water? Yeah, because even he knew, right? Thank you for the super chat. Super chat. American Wasp with Dieter McBusiness. Talk to me about Marianne Williamson. Could she pick up Bernie's baton so that a few years from now she can pass it to Fetterman? I know he's not perfect. Or maybe you meant perfect. I know he's not perfect. Dieter. Short answer. Watch the clip that I did with the debate between Breonna Joy Gray and Crystal Ball. That tells you everything I think about Marianne Williamson running for president. Jay says, when my dad was dying in the hospital, I told my supervisor I was taking a day off to see him. My supervisor said I would value my job more than that in today's environment. JB says, I drank a lot of tap water when I was little. Me too. Same. Bad Cookie says, come to Waukegan, Illinois. We will show you contaminated water and we cook with it because I'm not buying purified water to cook. It gets expensive. Sun Moon, people can't even have free clean water. Wow. Failed state. And thank you for the super sticker, Loner Weirdo. Oh, is that a gecko? Is it? Is it a Geico gecko? I like those, Loner Weirdo. All right, Roger, I'll take the comments on Rockfin. Oh, I'll take this one. Thank you for the super chat, Byron. Census makes sense. Find out where blacks live and reroute the money and resources to the white areas. Not surprised. There you go. And here comes Rockfin. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Roger Meadows. Time for a job for Moses West to attach each of those atmospheric water generators to each home. He is already tackling Jackson. So he is on the job, baby. Sabs, you always say F politicians, put your money to it. Oh, excuse me. Put your money to where it can impact the community the most. What better way to show your camaraderie than to donate to his foundation? Yes. Moses West. I know I was trying to find contact information for him to get him on, but yes, I'm so glad to hear he's there in Jackson because he came up with his own like water generator system. If we can, I don't know if we can, Roger, but if we can copy that link and put it in the chat, that'd be good. I meant Eric, sorry. And thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Jacob. Public Health Columbia, EDU, Public Health Now. Okay, and if we can copy and paste that one too. And thank you for the tip, Dave Burt. Thanks for the update on water Sabs and covering the water issues. I think we got to get the major unions to act on this. Yeah, we need some help. And thank you for this tip, Roger. I remember when one of the years past protesting New York Health Act, that it was found out insurance companies were like, for those people who have the nerve to expect us to cover them, just drag out the process until they die and we can write it off the books. There you go. I seriously, that's what I wonder sometimes. Maybe that's the plan. They just want to get rid of us. Okay, let's go into our next story here. AOC. She's a trip, isn't she? So AOC recently had an interview with GQ magazine. Yes, she's milking every bit of it. And during this interview, one of the things that was discussed is he talked about several topics, but one of the things that was discussed was about the possibility of AOC running for president. This was the first time I've heard her really not be receptive to it. And she is receiving criticism for her comments that she made in reference to it. But let's go ahead and get into this. And then I have a video clip I'm going to show you about this as well. AOC reveals pessimism about running for president. I live in a country that would never let that happen. My experience here has given me a front row seat to how deeply and unconsciously, as well as consciously, so many people in this country hate women. Let's go on. Or make this larger. Whoopsie. That was way too small. Booyah. AOC has revealed her pessimism about running for president. Speaking to GQ, Miss AOC, sometimes little girls will say, oh, I want you to be president or things like that. Now that's coming from AOC. It's very difficult for me to talk about it because it provokes a lot of inner conflict in that I never want to tell a little girl what she can't do. And I don't want to tell young people what is not possible. I've never been in the business of doing that. According to the magazine, her speech slowed to a crawl. She broke eye contact and tears pooled in the corner of her eyes. You know, this woman can really cry on the spot. Just like when she was crying at the border, the kids are in cages. Those kids are still in cages. No tears from her about that now. Interesting. The progressive New York Congresswoman said she believes two contradictory things at the same time. One is just the relentless belief that anything is possible. But at the same time, my experience here has given me a front row seat to how deeply and unconsciously, as well as consciously, so many people in this country hate women. And they hate women of color. People ask me questions about the future. And realistically, I can't even tell you if I'm going to be alive in September. And that weighs very heavily on me. So I'm assuming this portion here, she's probably talking about, I know she gets like death threats. That's probably what she's referring to. So yeah, let's go back in here. And it's not just the right wing. Misogyny transcends political ideology. Oh, you don't say. Haven't we been trying to tell people that? Like, misogyny is not just a right-wing thing. Left, right, and center. This grip of patriarchy affects all of us, not just women. Men, as I mentioned before, but also ideologically. There's an extraordinary lack of self-awareness in so many spaces. And so those are two very conflicting things. I admit to sometimes believing that I live in a country that would never let that happen. So something I've noticed about AOC, she has a tendency to use the right vocabulary, but at the same time, and by the right vocabulary, I mean the way that a politician would speak. But at the same time, she doesn't provide details about what she's talking about. So for example, she's talking about patriarchy. She's talking about lack of self-awareness in many spaces. What spaces? What places? Give examples of some of those the lack of self-awareness that you're talking about. What are the examples? That's something that I've kind of noticed about her. Like, she says, she does what politicians do. They kind of talk around it, but they use vague language and they don't really. Chip Walter, I just looked over and saw that. Smash that like button. It's just, what are you talking about? And don't get me wrong, like, I'm a female. I'm a Black female. Let's be real, there's spaces she's accepting in that I'm not accepted in. Let's keep that real. Oh, saying the quiet part out loud. Yes, I am. Remember the macro and the micro. Yeah. So, but I think it's important to give detail. I don't like the vagueness. I don't like that. Could Obama have gotten elected without the kind of financial support that he had? She asked. Well, that's every politician. No politician is going to get elected without financial support. Let's be real. Come on. And even then, if the DNC decides they don't want you, you still won't be there. Bernie Sanders raised the most money, right? Not Joe Biden. But they decided they didn't want him there, so he was gone. You see how this works? But it's just funny. She makes it seem like the only reason Barack Obama won was because he had the money, but she makes it seem like, I'm going to put this up here. Could Obama have gotten elected without the kind of financial support that he had? I don't understand that question, because no politician is going to win if you don't have the money. That's the point of fundraising. Usually, now I say usually the candidate with the most money wins. So what did that tell you about Bernie Sanders and the DNC? So I don't get that. I think that was her trying to use the Obama was a Black man card and he only got through because of this. And it's like, that's every politician has to have that, though. So don't get that point. Since arriving in Washington, D.C. following her upset victory in a 2018 midterm primary, And that was when she ran against Joe Crowley. AOC said she has experienced a lot of targeting, diminishment from my party. And the pervasiveness of that diminishment, it was all encompassing at times. I feel a little more steady on my own 2 feet now. But would I say that I have the power to shift the elected federal Democratic Party? No. Again, what is she talking about? This phrase right here, do like that, experienced a lot of targeting, diminishment from my own party. What are the examples? What are you talking about? Then she goes on to say, and the pervasiveness of that diminishment, it was all encompassing at times. What are the specific examples that you are referring to? I just see you using a lot of big words. Again, she's speaking like a politician. What is that, Pugsy? Mark Pugsley said there's no such word as diminishment. Let me go back in. Oh dear. It was open hostility to my presence, my existence. What did people say? What did people do? What are the examples of the hostility? I mean, if you're going to say that, you might as well go further and mention the examples. To me, this is just vague. Okay. Any sort of criticism of the Democratic Party is immediately cast as helping the right, or you're disrespectful, or you don't know everything that these people have done. And we do, but we are also allowed to learn from the outcomes of those victories and the unique dynamics of the present moment. To also say that we have to change track and we can't just do the same thing for 30 years. And this is the point that I always point to about this strategy of progressives running through the Democratic Party. This is the problem. Any sort of criticism of the Democratic Party is immediately cast as helping the right, or you're disrespectful. Don't you know what these people have done? So this is why I honestly felt like AOC and all the rest of the squad members should have left the Democratic Party and started their own thing. They have enough popularity now to make that happen. They really do, especially someone like AOC. But this isn't going to change, though. And I hope someone like AOC, Ayanna Pressley, Cori Bush, all of them realize, like, that's not going to change. You went into a party that is corporate. You won your races by running grassroots campaigns. That's kind of seen as a threat to all the people that you're among in DC that have to take corporate money, because now they're being called elitists, right? You joined that party. The party is not going to change to please you. You are going to change to please them, or they're going to taunt you. They're going to humiliate you. They are going to blackball you. They are going to push you out unless you go their way. And if you don't believe me, talk to someone like Cynthia McKinney. Talk to someone who's been there. This idea of progressives coming in and taking over the Democratic Party, in theory, it sounds like a good idea. I believe that too back then. I'm just going to be honest with you. I supported all of them. But when you hear them openly admit, and it's more so her and maybe Cori Bush, when you hear them openly admit that the party is not allowing this to happen, well, then what's the point? I don't know. Let's go back in a little bit more here, and then I'll play that video. I have always felt that the true power in the U.S. relies in mass movements and social movements. Well, AOC, that happens on the outside, not on the inside. The civil rights movement happened on the outside. The women's rights movement happened on the outside. The George Floyd protest happened on the outside. I just mentioned 3, I guess you would say, mass movements or direct action that we've had in this country. None of them happened inside of DC. That's the problem. If you want to still have those mass movements and social movements, you have over 1 million followers on Twitter. All you have to do is tweet something out and thousands of people will be there. Kid you not. That's all you have to do. But if you think that you're going to get these politicians with you in DC to jump on to some type of movement with you, you're wrong. They're not activists. They're not organizers. Most of them are not. Most of them are just politicians, and they're totally fine with that. Maybe this was not a good idea. That's right, Theron. AOC couldn't even promote the Medicare for All March. That's right. That's right. JB, she has over 12 million followers. There you go. So it sounds like she's waiting for someone else to do this. You have the largest following out of all the members of the squad. Why don't you do it? Oh, I'm pretty sure because you've already probably been told by people like Nancy Pelosi not to do it. And there are many people who will not do something until they are forced, until their hand is absolutely and utterly forced, whether that be for decisions of self-preservation or otherwise. And so there have been moments where I feel like I have been part of influencing an outcome or a decision by the party. I feel like everybody treated me like a one-term member of Congress, and they worked to make me a one-term member of Congress. Wasn't that what she said? She had no problem with being on Jimmy Dore's show. When Jimmy Dore interviewed AOC when she was running the first time, didn't AOC say that she didn't care if she would be a one-term congressperson? So why would she even let me go on. Let me go on. See, wait a minute. That right there, you know what that tells me? That tells me that she had political career aspirations all along. That tells me that she was not going to be a one-term congressperson. That tells me, look, when you intern for Ted Kennedy, and I'm here in Massachusetts, so I'm here to let you know, when you intern for Ted Kennedy, first of all, not just anybody gets that interview or that internship. Not everybody gets the interview for one, and not everybody damn sure got that internship. So if you intern for Ted Kennedy, you already had political aspirations, okay? So this story about being a bartender, which we found out some of that wasn't even true. This whole story about being a bartender and leaving out that you had started a startup, that's disingenuous and that's unfair to the people who really did support you and donated a lot of money to you. If you wanted to be a politician, just say you wanted to be a politician. But let's stop pretending like you came from the working class in the Bronx and you just happened to win. You worked hard and you won. I know about those. I worked at BU, you guys. She went to BU. I'm telling you, you don't just get an internship with Ted Kennedy. Okay. There was a very concerted effort from the Democratic side to unseat me. And I felt a shift after my primary election. And it felt like after that election was the first time that more broadly, the party started treating me like a member of Congress and not an accident. Yeah, when you started kissing Nancy Pelosi's ass. Pardon the language. That's when they changed. When you went from protesting outside Nancy Pelosi's office to calling her mama bear, to not forcing the vote, to voting to give money to Ukraine, voting present when it came to the Capitol police funding bill, voting for the Iron Dome, when you started going along with the Democrat establishment, that's when they started treating you like you were a member of Congress. Let's not pretend you just woke up one day and they decided, hey, we're going to be nice to her now. No, you started kissing ass. Sorry. Call it like I see it. Now, there's a video because, as I told you, some people did not like her comments. about running for president. Of course, Fox News had something to say about this. First and foremost, I think everyone on this panel is ridiculous. But this is how they're looking at this now. The fact that she didn't think that she could become president because people hate women. If that were the case, and as much as I despise Hillary Clinton, if that were the case, Hillary Clinton wouldn't have won the popular vote, AOC. Let's look at the numbers and be real. The majority of Americans that do vote voted for Hillary Clinton. And if she wants to flip that around and say, well, I wouldn't win because I'm a person of color. We had Barack Obama as president 2 terms in a row, boo. So you can't, I get it. But she's acting like it hasn't happened. And the reality is this, and we may not want to admit this, but if we didn't have electoral college, and if we did go by the popular vote, Hillary Clinton would be the president right now. So the majority of Americans had no problem voting for a woman. The majority of Americans had no problem voting for a Black man. That's the problem with the message that she delivered. Now listen to what they got to say, because they're going to eat this shit up. They're going to eat this alive.
AOC getting a new fawning cover story from GQ, which is still around, which calls her the political voice of a generation and the right wing's night terror in the flesh.
First of all, what is this? What is this? Why are we making politicians celebrities? Why are we doing this? When did this start to happen? Like, you can't complain about getting a lot of attention when you enjoy being a celebrity, when you feed into it. If you don't want a lot of attention, don't go on GQ. I'm sorry. You like being a celebrity, bud.
The radical congresswoman opening up on her own shot at the presidency, but she says the country is too sexist for it to happen. My experience here has given me a front row seat to how deeply and unconsciously, as well as consciously, so many people in this country hate women. And they hate women of color. People ask me questions about the future, and realistically, I can't even tell you if I'm going to be alive in September. I admit to sometimes believing that I live in a country that would never let that happen. But if she ever wants to be president, AOC is worried our checks and balances system, which is the bedrock of our Constitution, would block her radical ideas. God, don't you hate that Supreme Court and Congress? So this is. She seems sad, like she's going through something. Was this a cry for help?
I think she whines a lot, and it's when she says, "I don't even know if I'll be alive in September." Well, none of us know that. Like that, it's like that is life. I mean, this is like you go out there. I find her completely uninspiring.
Right.
I find it almost banal and boring. And I also feel like, who would never get a GQ cover from the Democrats?
That's right.
Abigail Spanberger. And she is the Democrat that actually is like a moderate person, and somebody that would get along very well with Harold. She'll never get that. And I actually think the Democrats, they get held back by people like AOC because she's pulling them so far to the left.
She says we don't like women in this country. I would disagree with that. I think Harold would agree that we do like women, and we like women of color. Example, if Michelle Obama announced she's running for president, landslide. What is AOC talking about?
Well, first of all, she's Debbie Downer. I mean, she said when she talks to little girls about them becoming president, she says, I don't want to tell young people that it's not possible or what's not possible. Hey, aren't you a dreamer? Isn't that how you got into Congress?
See, I told you. The moment I saw that article, I was like, oh, they're going to eat that up. They're really going to eat that up. People are laughing at her.
Then she says, so many people hate women. No, they don't hate women. They hate stupid women. They hate women who make believe there's something when they're not something. And you think you're going to die in September? Well, I'll bet there's a whole generation ahead of you who are probably going before you. Stop feeling sorry for yourself and stop being such a downer. And then she says, men suffer from patriarchy. You know what? Get out of the dumps. You're in Congress. Enjoy your life. Be happy.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know if I can false that.
So this is, you're right. She's supposed to be an inspiring leader to everybody, but especially to young women. And she just gave a speech and she's like, you can't become president and I'm going to die. I mean, what is that?
Right, so I think there's some ideas that the progressives have that are ones that resonate with some parts of the country. And there's some.
It's not some parts of, I got to say something here for a second. It's not some parts of the country. The country's just like split down the middle and shit. And people are like, oh, this side of the country is left, this side of the country is right. No, if you look at the exit polls, the majority of Americans agreed with Medicare for all, having health care for everybody in this country. So the majority of Americans actually agree on the issues. I don't like the way he framed it with certain parts, a certain part of the country. It's not a certain part of the country. I talked to conservatives in 2020 that agreed with Medicare for all. So I don't like it.
Value and currency in a lot of it. But when you hear the person who literally and figuratively is the voice of that group sound like this, uninspiring, predictable in so many ways, and making it always about her and the plight that she has. That's not what politics is about at its best. We talked about her running for president on the show a few weeks back, and you talked about her needing to go through a political maturing process. And it sounds like she might be stalled right now, because if you're serious about wanting to be president, you don't claim the country will never elect you after they elected Donald Trump and Barack Obama and now in Joe Biden in the last 12 years.
I told you she shouldn't have said that. She shouldn't have made that comment. Because there's people I could understand if we didn't have any previous examples to point to, but we have previous examples to point to. So I didn't think it was a good idea for her to make that remark.
You get out and you talk about the reasons why you want to be president. You get out and talk about how you're going to make life better, how your ideas will transform the country, and not reject me personally, because I don't agree with a lot of her. You can't reject me and other voters because we don't agree with you. You have to persuade us, not bash us in the process. Politics has become more of that. And unfortunately, she's starting to manifest a little of the worst aspects and elements of politics.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a woman running for president, you don't call everybody in the country sexist. You wait until you lose, and then you call them sexist like Hillary did, right?
Yes. It is September. Should we be checking? I mean, have we heard anything from her? Do we need to make a safety call or just something? Because I'm a little worried. I don't have her phone number, or I would call her. Just a point before I make my other point about, she went and did a, quote, men's magazine. Now, in the woke, non-binary world, that is a huge violation. There should no longer be men's magazines or women's magazines. Why are we having this bifurcation, this binary patriarchal setup? That's dictated by men who created that magazine and create women's magazines. That's got to go. But
See? I'm not going to show much more of this. I think it would be good for AOC to take a step back from the spotlight for a bit. That means no more magazine covers for a while. None of that stuff. Like, take a step back, because the more you put yourself out there, the more attention you're going to get. That means negative attention as well. That doesn't mean it's going to be positive. And if you are having difficulty handling that, and it sounds like in that article, sounds like she's about to break down. If you are having difficulty handling that, I think it would be good to take a step back. If you look at the other members of the squad, you don't see them all over the place all the time. Ayanna Pressley, Cori Bush, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar. Do you see them on the cover of magazines all the time doing these in-depth interviews? No, that's AOC. She embraced it. And when you embrace that, I mean, you get all the stuff that comes along with that, good and bad. That's my take. But Ryan Knight hit the nail right on the head. Ryan's always on point here. Stop worshiping politicians and turning them into celebrities. And he was right. And that post got over 3,000 likes. You know, you put yourself out there like that, you got to be able to face the criticism, and you will get a lot of criticism. Same thing with this show. For those of you that want to do like YouTube news shows or whatever, you're going to get a lot of criticism. I get a lot of criticism. Difference is, it doesn't bother me, but if you're sensitive, it can easily bother you. So that's something to note. I'm gonna go to some of the comments here and then we'll get to the next story. Casey, I can't with AOC lies. No, she doesn't tell little kids anything. She cries in front of them while they beg for their parents. Colin says she's probably talking about Pelosi, but she can't say a damn word. There you go. Thanks for the super chat, AJF. If it was possible for her to run for president, I would vote for her. I would have no confidence. I would have no vote of confidence in her intentions and conviction. That's interesting. Theron said AOC is telling us not to expect anything from her. Jared, it's like Greenwald said. You could replace her with Crowley and not know the difference. Ouch. You don't like my music. There's a series of filters in politics, just like education. People who want serious reform or change are weeded out. That's right. JB, they could literally leave the party and they'd still be in office at the same time. They can move as a collective bloc. The problem is they choose not to. Elvin, the Democrats will throw us some crumbs now and then just to quiet us off, but they'll go back to business as usual of tax cutting for the rich. That's right. Thank you for the super sticker, JM. And thank you for the super chat, AJF. Does she center herself in many of her statements? Yes, she does, AJF. I've noticed that too. It's all about her. Thank you for the super chat as well. She doesn't give examples, Sab, because she's using identity politics to a fault in that she's hurting inherent biases and bigotry in our society. Ouch. I'll take that comment on Rockfin Eric and we'll get to Chris Hedges. How did I get that there? Oh, that was the last one. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. For the gentlemen who don't know about Fetterman, as a mayor, he chased down a black man with a shotgun who he mistook for running away after hearing gunshots and pointed it at his chest. Found out those gunshots Fetterman heard were bottle rockets and he was jogging. Could have been Ahmaud Arbery before Ahmaud Arbery. Fett never apologized, and he was here on Long Island in the Hamptons this past weekend. Why do politicians go to the Hamptons? It's a good point. Thank you for this as well. Good news, the Michigan Court of Claims not only ruled yesterday that 1931 anti-abortion law is unconstitutional, but today ruled that the ballot measure protecting women's right to choose can go forward on the ballot. If voters give it a thumbs up, it will protect abortion rights and nullify the 1931 abortion ban that would outlaw the procedure in the state, which courts have so far blocked. Thank you so much for that, Roger. Officials from enforcing the Michigan Court of Claims struck down the law as unconstitutional on Wednesday, but the case is likely to be appealed, meaning it's still possible for a court to reverse the law and put the law back into effect in the future if the ballot measure doesn't succeed. The reproductive freedom for all ballot measure would amend the Michigan Constitution to state there's a fundamental right to reproductive freedom, which includes both abortion rights and contraception, prenatal care, postpartum care, miscarriage care, childbirth, infertility care, and sterilization. The ballot measures the state from punishing people for performing an abortion, though it does allow procedure to be restricted after the fetus is viable, except when medically necessary, as allowed under RVW. Thank you for that. AOC, you are not the only. I think I missed one. Thanks. Okay, AOC, you are not the only Congress member who gets death threats. Fox Abigail Spanberger, the CIA agent, really, damn, I knew you guys were dishonest in your partisan coverage, but now you're a psyop. Also, Sabby, you don't think AOC should have made that comment. Shoot, I don't think she should have done that interview. Give an interview with Labor Notes or Real News Network. Okay. Sabby, I got something for you, maybe a suggestion for your call-in tomorrow if you have not picked a topic yet. This will reinforce my belief why we must fight in the states. I will tweet it to you tonight. It's hot. It's hot. Thank you so much for that. All right. So we are going on to our next story here, and we will do call-in tonight after this segment because our call-in discussion is about this story in particular with Chris Hedges. Now, Chris Hedges has the Chris Hedges Report, which is on Substack. I highly recommend you guys follow this if you're not following it. But his most recent article is called "Let's Stop Pretending America is a Functioning Democracy." And there's certain parts I'm going to read here, not the entire article, but there's certain pieces I want to touch on. So let's go ahead and get into that. Let's stop pretending America is a functioning democracy. A functioning democracy could easily dispatch Donald Trump and his doppelgangers. A failed democracy and bankrupt liberalism assures their ascendancy. And if you notice the picture here, these are chess pieces. And there's politicians. I'm assuming these are politician faces on the chess pieces. And then there's this, I guess, like, looks like kind of like a dinosaur creature kind of there. So it's all about playing chess. Listen to this. There is a fatal disconnect between a political system that promises democratic equality and freedom while carrying out socioeconomic injustices that result in grotesque income inequality and political stagnation. Decades in the making, this disconnect has extinguished American democracy. The steady stripping away of economic and political power was ignored by a hyperventilating press that thundered against the barbarians at the gate. Osama bin Laden, Saddam Hussein, the Taliban, ISIS, Vladimir Putin, while ignoring the barbarians in our midst. The slow motion coup is over. Corporations and the billionaire class have won. There are no institutions, including the press, an electoral system that is little more than legalized bribery, the imperial presidency, the courts, or the penal system that can be defined as democratic. Only the fiction of democracy remains. Let's talk about this for just a second. This is something that we've said multiple times over at RBN. A lot of the politicians now, Joe Biden, Pramila Jayapal, Ro Khanna, even AOC is saying this as well. We have to protect and save our democracy. What democracy? Now, I usually talk about it from a voting aspect, but Chris Hedges gave examples in other areas, which I also think is important. The press, the presidency, the courts, the penal system. We don't really have one. Notice how he describes the electoral system as a little bit more than legalized bribery. Well, yeah, it's all about, again, who has the most money. Usually, that's the person that wins. A lot of it is about fundraising. So it's about getting your guy in or getting your woman in. That's really what it's about. And for the Democratic Party to say that they can handpick people, to argue in court and say they can handpick people, we don't have a democracy. Let's go back in. We're going to come to this I want to go to this point right here. The collective self-delusion masks who we have become. A country where the citizenry has been stripped of economic and political power, and where the brutal militarism we practice overseas is practiced at home. In classic totalitarian regimes, such as Nazi Germany or Stalin's Soviet Union, economics was subordinate to politics. But under inverted totalitarianism, the reverse is true. There is no attempt, unlike fascism and state socialism, to address the needs of the poor. Let's highlight this here. Whee! Okay, this is a perfect point here. There is no attempt, unlike fascism and state socialism, to address the needs of the poor. Regardless of who we have elected as president, the needs of the poor are not addressed and they're not fixed. It doesn't matter if it's a Republican or a Democrat. Poor people a lot of times are stuck where they're at. Some people point to examples like the welfare system is supposed to help people get out of that. It really doesn't. I've known people on welfare. It really doesn't. So I've told you multiple times, when you hear politicians talk about certain class groups, you'll hear them mention middle class. They'll mention working class. They'll mention elite. Never hear them mention poor people. And this was something I noticed even when I interviewed Rokana. There was a question I asked him, and I specifically said working class and poor people. And when he responded to me, he responded with middle class and working class. I didn't say anything about middle class. It's almost as if the poor don't exist. It's almost as if poor people are invisible. Let's go back in here. Rather, the poorer or more vulnerable you are, the more you are exploited. This is important, folks. Thrust into a hellish debt peonage from which there is no escape. Social services, from education to healthcare, are anemic, non-existent, or privatized to gouge the impoverished. Let's highlight this point here. The poorer and the more vulnerable you are, the more you are exploited. Let's give an example. People take advantage of poor people. When people know that you're in dire situation, sometimes people who have more money than you will take advantage of you. I'll give you an example. This is a personal example. I had a coworker. This is when I was waiting tables. Coworker was in a tough situation. Abusive husband. Didn't have a car. He had the car. He kind of controlled the finances per se because he made the most money. And he was a cop. He was abusive. She was walking from their apartment to work, back and forth pretty much every day. She walked. She decided it would be a good idea to tell our supervisor about her home situation, about how she needed to pick up extra shifts because she needed to make more money because her goal was to get out of that situation. And because he was a cop, it wasn't like she could call the police and say, hey, my husband just punched me in the face. Because the police look out for each other. She had no family. And she had a kid. What do you do in that situation? So one of my supervisors that knew about that said, okay, I'll let you pick up extra shifts. One day, there was money missing at the restaurant, and she showed up late. So guess who's blamed first? The person who is the most in poverty out of all of us that work there. They knew about your situation. They knew the husband was controlling the money and taking the money that you made. So of course, they're going to point to you. So she lost her job. The entire time that she worked there, she always felt like she had to be on eggshells after she told that story, because then now people know, then they know you need the money. Yeah, they know we all need to work to pay our bills. But now they really know that you in particular are in a desperate situation and you need these extra shifts. And yes, some people did take advantage of that. People take advantage of poor people. Let's go back in. I want to go to this point here. Right here. This is about diseases, so they're connecting the two. So you can watch an interview I conducted in 2014 with Sheldon Wolin here. In my book, America, the Farewell Tour, I examined the social indicators of a nation in serious trouble. Life expectancy in the U.S. fell in 2021 for the second year in a row. There have been over 300 mass shootings this year. Close to 1 million people have died from drug overdoses since 1999. There are an average of 132 suicides every day. Nearly 42% of the country is classified as obese, with 1 in 11 adults considered severely obese. This is important. These diseases of despair are rooted in the disconnect between a society's expectations of a better future and the reality of a system that does not provide a meaningful place for its citizens. Loss of sustainable income and social stagnation causes more than financial distress. As Emily Durkheim points out in The Division of Labor and Society, it severs the social bonds that give us meaning. A decline in status and power, an inability to advance, a lack of education and adequate health care, and a loss of hope results in crippling forms of humiliation. This humiliation fuels loneliness, frustration, anger, and feelings of worthiness. Put this here. This humiliation fuels loneliness, frustration, anger, and feelings of worthlessness. Being poor is stressful. And sometimes if you're in that situation, yeah, you may feel like you're alone. I had a friend when I was in high school, wouldn't let people come to their house because they didn't want people to see how they lived. I didn't find out until I graduated where they actually lived. That type of loneliness, it can isolate you from people. And then there's one more piece I want to touch on here. Right about here. Anti-politics masquerades as politics. No sooner does one money-drenched election cycle end, the next one begins, perpetuating what Wolin calls politics without politics. These elections do not permit citizens to participate in power. The public is allowed to voice opinions to scripted questions, which are repackaged by publicists, pollsters, political consultants, and advertisers and fed back to them. Few races, including only 14% of congressional districts, are considered competitive. Politicians do not campaign on substantial issues, but on skillfully manufactured political personalities and emotional change culture wars. This touches on something here about the political personalities. A lot of times when people vote for a candidate, it's because of their personality, not necessarily because of the issues. Roger Meadows knows this. We've talked about this before. Usually it is because of their personality. There's a lot said here. I'm not going to read the entire article because I think you guys should read the entire article yourself. Eric, please feel free to put the link in the chat so they can check this out. But We don't really have a democracy in this country. Now, tomorrow, we're going to prove that. Tomorrow on RBN, me, Nick, Fiorella, Pasta, and Lucy are doing a panel about election integrity. Because Fiorella and Pasta were actually on the ground and they covered this. They're going to tell you the things they saw. Some of this I already know. But if you think that we have fair elections in this country, you're wrong. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow night. That's why I say we don't have a democracy in this country. Very great article by Chris Hedges there. Check it out. Definitely, guys. Now, I know some of you are waiting on that poll result, right? Eric, let me know when you have that ready. We will be doing call-in tonight, you guys. We're going to talk about what Chris Hedges just said there about democracy. So I'll put that link up there in just a second. And, oh, you got the poll? Okay, let's go. Okay, here are the poll results so far. Who is Sabby's surprise guest for Friday? 23% said Glenn Greenwald. 17% said Susan Sarandon. 40% said Cornel West. And 20% said Whitney Webb. It is interesting how this, it's interesting how you guys voted. Interesting. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and show you who the guest is tomorrow. Let me get this off of here. So the guest tomorrow, I know some of you are waiting to see if you got it right, right? Right? Tomorrow night, my special guest will be Dr. Cornel West. So for those of you who picked that option, congratulations, your winner's here. Super excited, guys. He'll be here at 7 p.m. tomorrow. So I'm going to start at 7 tomorrow, not 8. I'll go ahead and send that out on my newsletter as well. I have so many questions to ask him, you guys. I'm super excited, super pumped. So if you voted for Cornel West, you were correct. So come join me for that tomorrow. Should be a great time. Super, super pumped. So we should get to call in too, is right, Eric. So call in starts at 9:45. I think now is a good time for me to take break. And I'll be right back to close out. Let me copy the link here and paste and link, and then I'll pin it. So I'll be right back. Eric, jump in whenever you're ready.
Jump on in. All right. Let's see. All right. So the survey said the answer is Dr. West. All right. How's everybody doing? Yeah, that's going to be good stuff. So Sabby's taking her break. She's going to be hitting here the call-in after this. Let me remove this one. We'll do a little moving things around on our screen. Yeah, so that's a big one. That's going to be a good one. Does Cornel West regret voting for Biden? That would be a good question. Cornel West will be interesting, no doubt. All right, let's see if we got a few chats here and here for starters. Yeah, let's put one up here from Leroy, who says capitalism is woke, inclusive slavery with streaming services. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, Leroy. And thanks for the super chat, AJF. Sab, one of the key purposes of major corporate media has been not to bring up the truth that many on the left to right agree on, progressive politics. Yeah, that's true. That's one of those things that, when you do the polling, you talk to people, I mean, you know that the vast majority of people believe in all these things that are, that are progressive politics, that are in any progressive platform. And it's really, our politics is all about, the oligarchy, the billionaires, just getting their way and distracting us. there's that whole thing about the Overton window and how everything is about just doing these fights, but everything that's talked about has to be within the Overton window. Hi, back at you to Casey and EG. And it's good to see everybody. Good to be seen. Let's see what else we got going on. Oh, here we go. Thanks for the super chat, AJF Milan. Talking about the picture earlier from the Chris Hedges article. AJF is noting that a horse skull, which is the knight in chess. Yeah, from what I remember in chess, you had those knights. Let's see. Hey, how's Corey? Corey is good. Corey's actually going out into the trip in the wilderness this weekend. He likes to get out there. All right, now, while I have a few minutes, let's see. First, let's do our banner that says Sabby's coming. Also, we'll say hit that like if you before you hit the way out. We got call-in shows starting soon from our Sabby Sabs. So let's see if I can quickly bring up here an article I was just seeing from one of our favorites, the great Caitlin Johnstone. This might be our latest. Let's see, what's our date? Yeah, September 8th. Hot off the presses from one Caitlin. Here we go. Get back here. There it is. All right, we got Caitlin saying our entire civilization is fake and stupid. And I love this tune that she has up here. All the Simpsons characters supporting the current thing. But she writes, you're not jaded. Everything really is just as phony and vapid as it looks. I say this because if you're reading this, it's likely the result of a personal quest for truth, which has led to a gradual peeling away of the lies our society is made of. Your eyes probably found this text because you're the sort of person who's been trying to make sense of the world in a sea of propaganda and deception, which often results in a growing disgust, not just with the power structures which oppress and tyrannize humanity, but with our entire civilization. Our experience is very common for people like yourself, and it's very common that it arises from a clear perception of reality. From the very beginning, clear perception of reality. There we go. From the very beginning, human civilization has been built around serving the interests of the powerful, from religion to philosophy to the arts to law. As the world has gotten smaller, and it's more possible to artificially manufacture culture with mass-distributed media, it has only become more the case. That's why the more you learn about the world, the more fake and stupid our civilization looks. It's because it is fake and stupid. Our news, our entertainment, our jobs, our legal systems, our political systems, our education systems, our financial, monetary, economic, and commercial systems, the way our entire civilization is structured and organized, has nothing to do with what's true and good, and everything to do with keeping human organisms compliantly turning the gears of capitalism and empire. So this is one thing I can always do is just reading some Caitlin and sound smart and base, because she is. So we got Simpsons Ukraine. We got the phoniest, most PR intensive war of all time, and our Zelensky's on Vogue. It's like the thing self-parodies itself. You had here, Zelensky rings the New York Stock Exchange bell, launching a campaign to entice foreign investors while crushing the labor rights of Ukrainians. His appearance coincided with the euro's collapse and the economic crisis fueled by the Ukraine proxy war. And just in case anyone's joining us now wondering what's going on here on Sabby's show, she's on a short break and she's going to be back and then jumping into call-in. which you can get either through the link, or you can get the call-in app on your cell phone and call in and tell us what you think. All right, let's pick up some more of this from Caitlin. Underneath all the social engineering and power-serving control mechanisms, there's a whole life of raw terrestriality that is much, much older and much stronger than the lies of the machine. You can see it crackling everywhere, even in the densest parts of the matrix. And this is one thing that Caitlin talks about that I really like a lot, that she talks about the concept of an awakened consciousness of really the whole human population as a being, like a person that's gaining consciousness, that's becoming more and more conscious. And that's what I hope. I think that's what we hope is happening, is more and more people are cluing in, and more people are getting it and are just becoming more and more aware of what's really going on. And then the way she ends it here: look closely and you'll see the fraudulence. Look even closer and you see what's real. Your sense of alienation is entirely valid and based in truth, but we're not meant to stay there. Truth beckons us forward. Truth is beckoning us all forward. And these mind cages they have built for us aren't real enough to hold us in for much longer. And just reading here from the great Caitlin Johnstone, which you can find at CaitlinJohnstone.com.
All right. Definitely a great person to follow, you guys, is Caitlin Johnstone. I have gone ahead and I've put the call-in link in the chat. It's pinned to the top of the chat. So I will go ahead and we're going to go ahead and open that room right after I end off here. But guys, thanks so much for tuning in.
Tomorrow, big night, big show tomorrow.
That's right. Don't forget, tomorrow night, Cornel West will be here, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Should be a great discussion, and I'll do a call in right after that to get your thoughts as well. Other than that, guys.
And RBN before that.
Oh, yes, and RBN before that. Don't forget, we are doing the panel, so don't forget that panel. That should be really good. If you have any questions about election integrity in this country, you definitely need to check out that panel tomorrow. So other than that, guys, I'm heading out. You know how we do this. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.